The Final Four is officially set, and we've got some unbelievable matchups. I think we're going to get a weekend of some classic games, regardless of which side of the bracket you look at, and regardless of the teams that make it through to the championship game. The matchup I'd like to break down today is the one between Iowa and South Carolina, as with this being their first matchup of the season, it's got me really intrigued about the potential matchups and coaching decisions to be made. So, who wins this game? In today's video, I'll be taking a look at the Final Four matchup between the Iowa Hawkeyes and South Carolina Gamecocks and predicting the game's outcome, looking at each team's strengths and weaknesses, the X-Factor player on each squad, the keys to success, every little detail. Before we start, if you're new here and enjoy the video, be sure to subscribe. For more women's basketball content like this, a like would also go a really long way in helping the channel and the game of women's basketball grow on this platform, so all support is greatly appreciated. Anyway, with that being said, let's talk about this Final Four matchup. Firstly, let's dive into the strengths and weaknesses for each team. For the Gamecocks, their biggest strength is inarguably their defense. Anchored by Aliyah Boston's paint defense, South Carolina have been able to hold their opponents to just 31% shooting from the field and almost below 50 points per game, which, to put it blatantly, is elite. For those stats I just mentioned, they are number one in the country for both. Pure greatness. Against Iowa, this is going to be extremely important, considering how destructive of an offensive weapon Caitlin Clark can be. So, taking away her options and shutting down as many good looks as possible is something SC must take care of, which I think they can do as their defense has looked sharp all year. Another strength of South Carolina is their interior scoring. With a presence like Aliyah Boston in the paint, it's no surprise that the Gamecocks dominate down on the low block. SC love a post entry, but they stay active after the shot as well, averaging over 17 offensive rebounds per game. If they continue to take advantage of that and can bully their way to the rim consistently against Iowa, they'll be looking strong in this game. However, one weakness that may concern South Carolina is their three-point shooting. It's well known that the Gamecocks' three-point threat is lackluster, shooting just 31.5% from deep as a team this season, and if it doesn't come along against Iowa, it could give the Hawkeyes plenty of life in this game. What UConn did well in their matchup against South Carolina earlier this season was walling up the paint and preventing entries inside to Aliyah Boston. They kind of let the South Carolina guards have a lot more space out on the perimeter, perhaps to what they're used to, because there was an extreme focus on taking away the inside offense. Unfortunately for SC in that game, though they won, their guards struggled to take advantage of that, either over dribbling and turning it over, or missing their three-point looks. If that's to happen again against the electric offense of Iowa, then South Carolina could be in a bit of trouble. So they really need to capitalize on all their looks, because if they do hit those shots, it can break the game wide open for them, like we saw with Destiny Henderson in the championship game last season. As for Iowa, their biggest strength is simply Caitlin Clark. There's no one else in the country that can create offense and score at the rate that she can. So to have that on your team is undoubtedly going to play a big role in potentially winning this game. Clark's a brilliant playmaker, can score at will. It doesn't really matter what one-on-one defense she faces, she's going to get a good look off. If she has another terrific game on Friday, perhaps the scales begin to tip in Iowa's favor. Another strength for Iowa is their three-point shooting, not just from Clark but the team as a whole. Players like Martin and Marshall have stepped up as perimeter threats this season. Even Warnock at times has been a big contributor from range, and it's resulted in Iowa being the 7th best three-point shooting team in Division I basketball, shooting an elite clip of 38%. If they fire again versus South Carolina with Caitlin Clark, it's going to open up things drastically for them in the half court, so it's something that I believe they must take advantage of. But what about weaknesses for Iowa? The biggest one that comes to mind is rebounding. Iowa have been killed on the boards this tournament, and it's nearly lost them a couple of games, particularly their Sweet 16 battle with Colorado. Though Iowa did end up winning semi-comfortably and were the better team on the day, I can give you that, but Colorado really made it competitive and took it up to the Hawkeyes because they grabbed every rebound in sight. It didn't matter if it was in the hands of a Hawkeye, Colorado players were still flying in to get it right back. In fact, Colorado finished that game with 21 offensive rebounds. From an Iowa perspective, that is completely unacceptable and is something that must change if they are to beat South Carolina. I've already mentioned how dominant the Gamecocks are on the glass. They destroy teams with their offensive rebounding. So this is definitely an area of concern for Iowa in this game, and is something that could honestly result in them getting blown out. They really need to fix up the energy and effort in the rebounding battle in order to win this game. So those are the strengths and weaknesses for both teams. Now, let's take a look at a player from each team that could make or break this game for their respective side. Essentially, who are the X-Factor players? For South Carolina, it's Zia Cooke. When she's playing well offensively, South Carolina's offense is brutally dominant. Her good play gives SC the flexibility to rest Aliyah Boston if needed, and also expand out to play a more perimeter-oriented game. If Zia Cooke is knocking down her shots, this can also open up the paint a bit more, as teams can't just clog the interior with their bigs. They have to step out and guard the backcourt, and that in turn gives Aliyah Boston some more space to do her thing inside. The less chances Iowa has to send a double to Boston, the better off South Carolina will be. And Zia Cooke finding her form early in this game is going to be key to doing that. As for Iowa, the big X factor for them is Monica Czinano. There's definitely some questions to be concerned with for Czinano in this game, and her ability to stand up alongside Clark offensively is going to be one of them. Can she be a viable option for Iowa on the offensive end? If not, it's a tall task for the Hawkeyes, to say the least, because as extraordinary as Clark is, having her create the offense all on her own is just not going to work against a defense as well structured as the Gamecocks. Will Czinano be able to at least somewhat contain and minimize the impact of Aliyah Boston on the other end as well? I really don't know the answer to that question right now, but we are going to find out soon. It's an intriguing matchup for sure, just because of the unknown with it. We know Czinano can be great, especially out of that pick and roll with Clark, but it's going to be interesting to see how she adapts and adjusts to the defensive intensity of South Carolina, because this isn't something Iowa have come up against before. In my eyes, if Iowa are to win this game, it's going to come down to how much of an impact Czinano can make alongside Clark, or if South Carolina can turn her into a non-factor. Again, bit of a wait and see, but Czinano could potentially make or break this game for Iowa, both offensively and defensively. Finally, before we get into my final prediction, what are the keys to success for each team? What factor ensures them a spot in the national championship game? For South Carolina, they've got to take advantage of all the size mismatches. They're such a tall, athletic team that can undoubtedly destroy Iowa on the boards and make life difficult for Iowa's front court. The physicality they bring, especially Boston, can get Iowa's front court in foul trouble early, and if that happens to Czinano in particular, that would be devastating for Iowa. If SC can do that, it's pretty much game over. I mean, just consider the roster they have. They've obviously got Aliyah Boston, but girls like Saxton, Cardoso, and Amihir are just going to keep punishing Iowa if she needs a rest. Just consider this. Louisville and Colorado dominated Iowa on the glass in their matchups, and they definitely don't have the size that SC have. So if the Gamecocks are full of intent and hustle with these matchups, it wouldn't surprise me if they overrun the Hawkeyes in a heartbeat. As for Iowa, their key to success will be their efficiency from the perimeter. Scoring in the paint is going to be hard regardless, so if they can get a hot start from 3, and from there, start drawing out South Carolina's bigs from the paint, that can set them up for a good game. I don't just mean this for Caitlin Clark too, everyone needs to step up this game to keep the SC defense at bay. You want to prevent as many blitzes on Clark as possible, so she has the space and freedom to make reads and get good shots off. So seeing Gabby Marshall or Kate Martin hit some shots early to freeze up the SC defense will be a big help. Again, scoring inside is going to be tough, so looking to get Clark and her teammates some open threes is going to be key to sticking with South Carolina's offensive output early and potentially opening up the half court a bit more as the game wears on. So, we've looked at the strengths and weaknesses for both teams, the X-Factor plays that can make a difference, and the keys to success. So now it's time for my final prediction. Who wins this game? As good of a game as I think it'll be, I'm going to go with South Carolina by 10 points. Ultimately, I'm concerned about how Iowa match up here. If they're going to stand a chance, then they're going to need the perfect offensive game from Clark just to keep up with South Carolina. I think they're going to struggle slowing down Aliyah Boston too, and almost certainly lose the rebound battle by a considerable margin. And that is going to seriously impact their chances of winning this game. Even if the offense is ticking and Iowa can draw AB out of the paint and get her involved in pick and rolls, or even if Clark can't miss a sidestep 3 all night, I just can't envision a world where the Gamecocks are losing this game. Iowa are fantastic, don't get it twisted, and they can keep this game entertaining for sure. But South Carolina and Aliyah Boston are a whole new level of dominance they haven't faced before, considering the extreme rebounding disparities between these two teams and the physical mismatches across the board. This is a game South Carolina surely cannot lose. But what do you guys think of this? Who are you picking to win this game? Iowa or South Carolina, and by how much? Let me know all your predictions down in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave it a like and subscribe. But with that being said, I will see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.